Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei get kicked off Peerage and abandoned by everyone? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Devilfantime for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Okay, so I'm getting the motivation to do this during CL anyways. That is the baritone section mascot and his son. The mascot's name is Gary and his son is Ahmed. The funniest part of this is that our rival school's mascot is also an eagle. That is all I have to say on this image. Now then, on to the story, and I chose that Vala will have Sieg's body and face. I'm also just gonna add Gloxina from 7 Deadly Sins, cause why not? Also, I'm adding Shiva with him having an appearance like Inisuk from Demon Slayer, and he will have a higher amount of enjoyment for a good fight. Not like Inisuk's level of fight me, but he won't turn down a fight if someone offers. Also, I'm not opposed to putting more masculine-looking individuals in this. As Issei was walking to school, he started to actually think about a few things, such as maybe coming out to the ORC. I mean, they may be a bit distant at the moment, but hopefully they'll be supportive. When he gets to school, he gets all the usual stares of hatred for acting like a pervert most of the time. He never actually looked, but he would still go with Matsuda and Motohama to the peepholes. They know he has a preference for guys, and they all make jokes about it when they hang out, so they do usually try and keep them off of him, but still. They'd also tried setting him up on a few blind dates as well, but most of them were just there for a quick fling, and he wasn't about to go for someone like that. 1 or 2 went somewhat well, but just didn't work, partially due to not having time cause of Rias and the others, and partially cause they didn't end up being his type. There's a few other students who know, but that'll come up later. Anyways, once it got around to lunchtime, he went to the club room since that's where he would usually eat. Once he got there though, he saw everyone looking at him with a look that said they were both either disgusted, feeling victorious, or both. What's going on, guys? Issei asked, a bit confused about their looks. That's when Rias walked forward, smirking. Well, Issei, since you've served your purpose, we don't need you here anymore, Rias said with a grin. Besides, you begin to bring down the group's personal image with your perverted actions. Looking around, he saw something that made his anger rise momentarily. Behind her, on the table, was a shining red bishop piece emanating a devilish aura with a bit of blood on its surface. Gremory, where's Gasper? Issei asked, the boosted gear showing itself, his anger dispelling the illusion usually put over it. Rias was momentarily fearful before she smirked. Well, we told him about our plan, and he was a bit against it, so I tried to help him understand, but he didn't. He would have tried to stop us, and then you'd both end up as stray devils, Issei growled, his power rising steadily until boost. With that single declaration, his power spiked, now enveloping the room in his aura and bloodlust. Asia had nearly pet out from the overwhelming pressure Issei was emitting. That's when he spoke. Fine, you want me gone? I'll leave. Drake, is there a way you can remove those damned pieces to save them the trouble? Drake's voice boomed from the sacred gear, filling the other occupants with fear. Easily, partner. It may hurt a bit though, Issei chuckled darkly. Well, not like I haven't been through a bit of that before. Drake was silent for a moment before he laughed. Now that's what I like to hear from my partner. Not an ounce of hesitation. In his head, Issei heard Drake say the command he needed to give, and told him he'd know when to call it out. Rias tried to approach, but then, boost! After the battle against Trihexa and the Cow's Brigade, a old childhood love of Rias came back. Most of his harem have ignored him and moved away, only a few. That's when Issei feels it, the concentration of what little demonic power is in him. He figured, and rightly so, that this was what Drake had meant. He then called out in tandem with Drake, Purge. With this command, his aura concentrated into the center of his chest, becoming a blinding light. Through this light, and the admittedly painful experience, Issei walked forward, standing in front of the coffee table that housed Gasper's former bishop piece. Once the light subsided, Issei was seen there, his hand out over the table, out of breath and extremely disheveled. He then opened his hand and 8 red pawn pieces fell onto the table. With this he walked off, both to recover and see if he could find Gasper. If he was dead, he would at least give him a proper burial. If he was alive, though, he would do everything in his power to keep him that way. Once he was outside, he walked over to his old lunch spot and began eating, hoping to restore some energy while he, with Drake's help, started trying to sense where Gasper was, extending his aura and senses quite a bit. During this time, he couldn't find him, but he did find something to look a bit more into after school. Before lunch was over, though, the Kendo Club presidents walked over, seemingly angry. "So, this where you been hiding, pervert?" sneered K-Tace. She seemed to resent H more than the others for some reason he couldn't put his finger on. "Oh well," Issei sighed. "I wasn't even there today, but you still went to find me. You'd swear you actually care about me." Neither of them noticed his somewhat weakened state. K-Tace scoffed. "Like we'd ever care for someone like you." Issei raised an eyebrow. "So you care for people who look at you pervertedly?" "I've never actually looked." "Feel free to ask Matsuda or Motohama next time you see them. I'm usually just there to hang out with friends and make sure they don't get too stupid or loud." K-Tace glared at him. "And why should we believe either of those perverts?" Issei finished packing up his leftovers and went to throw away his trash. "Other than the fact that they've both thrown each other under the bus multiple times to see more skin? Nothing too much really," he then mutters under his breath, not realizing they could both hear him. "Besides, I'm not even as attracted to women as I am men." Murayama grew perplexed, and K-Tace couldn't contain her shock. "Wait, you're G?" Before she could finish, Issei was in front of her, covering her mouth. "No, I'm bi. I just prefer guys." "Doesn't mean y'all aren't attractive, though. Seriously, those two idiots are some of the only ones who know. They've even set me up on a few blind dates before this." Murayama actually kinda laughed at this. "Hold on, I'm sorry, it's just the fact that I'd seen you on some of those dates and always wondered what was happening." Issei chuckled a bit before Drake forced the boosted gear to show up again as he put up a barrier. "Well, that's all fine and dandy, but would you two like to explain why there's a Shinto priestess and a child of Susanoo in front of my partner, and seemingly threatening him?" Both girls were immediately on guard, but K-Tace stepped in front of Murayama a bit. "We didn't know he was your partner, and you probably know why we did so, you overgrown lizard." Drake growled at that small remark, just about ready to take over Issei's body to beat them half to death before Issei himself intervened. "Okay, can we all calm down? As I just said, I never looked at you guys in that way, so can we please all keep from attacking each other?" The tension continued for a few more seconds before Murayama sighed, putting her hand on K-Tace's shoulder. "Come on, let's just leave them alone, cat. He seems a bit weakened." Something must have happened. Murayama didn't notice the slight blush on K-Tace's face at the nickname, but Issei did and smirked before schooling his features. "I'm guessing that you're the priestess, K-Tace?" "If I had to guess, sent to protect Murayama, based on how violently you tend to attack when you catch me with the other two idiots." K-Tace turns to glare at him. "Oh, and what if I am?" Issei goes in close, whispering quiet enough that Murayama couldn't hear. "I noticed that blush. Don't worry, I won't tell her, but I am willing to help." K-Tace pushed him away while enhancing herself, knocking him into a tree, blushing. He wasn't really too hurt, but still. Seeing this, Murayama smacked the back of K-Tace's head lightly. "Come on, no need to attack him. How about you head on the CL? I just need to talk to Issei real quick." K-Tace was about to protest, but Murayama simply looked her in the eyes, and she bowed before leaving, but not without glaring at Issei. Murayama sighed. "Well, now that she's gone," she started before her power flared out of her body. "Don't touch her. She may be here to protect me, but if you hurt her, I don't care who gets in my way, I will strike you down." Issei chuckled a bit nervously. "Well, I bet we're both glad Drake put up that barrier before, huh? Also, don't worry, I don't intend to touch her in any way. Besides, why would I try and pursue another person's crush when they could probably kill me with ease?" Murayama's aura went back inside her as she blushed a bright red. What are you talking about? I don't have feelings for K-Tace. I mean, sure, she's seen me at my most vulnerable and didn't leave, makes me laugh, even when I feel down, is willing to put up with me when I'm not feeling the best, and my heart may beat like a war drum when she smiles at me, making me blush like an idiot. But it definitely isn't a crush. Issei and Drake went completely deadpan, not really being able to process either just how far in denial she is, or how much she thinks Kate sees her as a friend. Yeah, anything else you want to get off your chest? Murayama sighed. Fine, I love her, but I swear she doesn't love me back. Seriously, Issei didn't know how to respond to this. And what makes you say this? Murayama looked like she was both resigned to fate, and like she was fuming with rage. Seriously, how do you take someone saying they want you to throw them onto a bed and ravish their body till the sun sets the next day as a sign of friendship? Issei's brain short-circuited at that. I'm sorry, did that actually happen? Murayama sighed in resignation. Yep, and similar things multiple other times with the same result. And now Drake was laughing. Bwahahahahaha, oh my god, how can you be that oblivious? Seriously, Albion wasn't this oblivious. Issei was a bit confused. Albion? Who's that? Drake froze up at that. Well, partner, Albion was considered to be my rival, my only equal, and there's a few other things that were lost to time, like why we originally started fighting. Issei was a bit surprised at this. Another dragon that could match your power? Damn, he must have been powerful. Drake got a little odd for a second before. She actually, Issei shrugged. Good to know. She's still around? As another Longinus, but yes, Murayama coughed into her hand. Ahem, as entertaining as this is, why even bring it up? Issei sighed. Well, how about we have a little bet? If I can get Kates to ask you out, you owe me $1, and if I fail, you get $1 and the location of every one of their peepholes so they won't be seeing your body, or Kates anymore. Your eyes only, Murayama blushed, but got a determined look in her eyes. Okay, let's do it. Issei grinned and held out his hand for a handshake out of reflex. Murayama rose an eyebrow, but shook his hand, sealing the bet. And so, the day continued, Issei genuinely trying to get Kates to confess. Here are some of the responses she gave, when he simply said she should ask her out. Well, what if she doesn't like me? She doesn't show any major signs of liking me. He then brought up some of the things Murayama had said. She probably just meant that platonically. He brought up how she just needed to give it a chance. I don't want to ruin our current friendship. After many more attempts, during which he figured out that Murayama had outright confessed before and it went over her head, he really wanted to give up, or at least stop for the day. Just ask her out. It won't ruin your friendship, and when you confess, tell her it's as more than a friend. With that, and the final bell, Issei left to go search for Gasper. He was hoping the boy had been okay after what happened. That's when he felt it, the surge of magic that happened whenever Gasper activated his sacred gear. Running towards the source, he hoped nothing bad had happened. Once he arrived at the scene, he saw what might have been the reason for his outburst. Around Gasper were two members of the ORC, specifically Kiba and Aquino. Kiba had out a sword that seemed to be emitting flames, and Aquino had lightning arching around her body, though either the flames nor lightning was moving within the frozen time. He was though, and he was pissed off. His anger could come later though. For now, he had a cute boy who was scared and needed saving. Hey Gasper. Gasper looked up at him and became happy, but also scared. Weren't they gonna kill you, Issei? How are you still alive? Issei chuckled fondly at Gasper's worrying. Don't worry, Gasper, they couldn't kill me if they tried. Gasper's expression became relieved before remembering the situation they were in, and what was about to happen to him before. We have to get out of here, Issei smirked. Yeah, we'll get out, but first, he says before walking up to the two frozen devils. First, he kicked Kiba as hard as he could between the legs, noticing that a deep red aura came from his leg as he struck with his anger in mind. Next, he throat punched Aquino with as much force as he could, summoning the boosted gear before he did so. He then kicked Kiba once more in the family jewels. Okay, let's go. Oh, and try and unfreeze them after we get about a block away from them. Gasper nodded, but got him barred. Can I ride on your back? I'm still a bit weak from. Issei's expression darkened as he mentioned that, but he quickly schooled his emotions, putting a genuine smile on his face. No problem, just he's sure to hang on. I don't want you falling off, he said with a grin. Gasper smiled, a light blush dusting his cheeks. Okay, Issei. After saying this, Issei pulls Gasper onto his back before quickly running off, only going at a fast human pace that, to him, felt like a jog. Question that later, Issei. For now, focus on the really cute boy on your back who's giggling as you give him a little ride. Mind. No. Issei continued to think to himself, praying he didn't accidentally talk out loud. Luckily, he didn't, but still. As for the two Gremory Peerage members, they both fell to the ground in pain once time started, Kiba's voice going rather high as he clutches his cracked nuts, and Akino was struggling to breath, her airway having been almost completely cut off by the throat punch. Both were bleeding from the attacks though. Back to more important stuff, Issei was trying to keep his mind off of the boy on his back. Namely, he was trying not to think perverted thoughts. That would be for later, after making sure he was okay. So, you sure you're okay? I don't want to see you hurt or anything if I can help it, Issei said. Gasper blushed a bit at that, having developed a bit of a crush on Issei over the few months they'd gotten to know each other. He was kind, caring, not affected by his sacred gear, actually pretty attractive, had muscles that made his mind go to some less than PG places. Really, he was the whole package in Gasper's eyes. Moving on, Gasper shook his head no and they continued on to Issei's home, where they were a bit shocked to see something, or rather, someone. Standing there, all their stuff in their arms, were Rias and Asia. Seeing them, Issei growled, not noticing the bloodlust he was giving off. Basically everyone else could feel it though, making it hard for the two girls to breathe. They could practically feel a knife blessed by the biblical God himself held to their throats. As for the others, well, his parents were impressed, but knew they could each do better. Then you have Gasper, who is half vampire, and who would always see adult vampires only release bloodlust when they were either trying to impress a potential mate, or when they were protecting their partner. Yeah, he was blushing a good bit at this little display. The bloodlust wasn't directed at him after all, so he was seeing this as a show of power to impress him almost instinctively. Note, any time I make something non-canon like this, it's my way of saying fanfic logic, don't question me. I can explain in more detail if anyone wants to know, but that can come later. Issei's voice began to overlap with Drake's voice, resulting in his voice booming out. Leave now. Asia was completely terrified, but Rias was feeling like a particularly dumb bitch today, so she didn't comply immediately. Or what? You aren't even a devil anymore, so what hope would you have against us? Issei let out a low chuckle, shaking the surrounding area. Adorable, you thought I was giving you the choice. You know what, I'll be nice and give you a choice, leave or be destroyed. With this decree, he summoned the boosted gear. After a few seconds, during which Rias laughed at his, and I quote, foolish attempt at a threat, Issei grew impatient and flashed forward, having channeled his hatred and bloodlust like last time. Rias hadn't expected the sudden increase in speed, causing her to stumble back on shock. You have to the count of 3 to leave, Issei said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet the two devils could practically feel it in their bones. 1. They hadn't left yet, but were a bit scared now. 2. Issei raised an eyebrow at them as he said this, practically daring them to let him reach 3. Before he could even finish preparing his mouth to say 3 though, Rias began teleporting away with Asia in tow, not wanting to deal with him at the moment, aka, she was a scared little. After Issei calmed down, he went over to check on Gasper, noticing his blush. Worry about that later, Issei. For now, let's get inside. After muttering this to himself, he picked up Gasper and walked inside. Once inside, his parents were there, sitting on the couch. Issei, sit down. We need to talk. Son, we need to talk, Issei's father, Gora said seriously, his tone leaving no room for argument. Okay, Dad, but can Gasper here stay with us? Something unfortunate happened, and he needs a place to stay, Issei asked, hoping his father would be okay with it. Gora just grinned widely in response. Don't worry, he can stay with us, though we may end up moving for a while. Plus, Issei raised an eyebrow. Is that what you wanted to talk about? Partially, Issei's mother Miki said. The family began to enter, but Gasper seemed to hesitate at the door. Issei's parents looked confused for a second before a light bulb went off in their heads. Goro rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Sorry, please enter. I forgot that even dampers are bound by that pesky rule. Weakens y'all severely to enter without invitation, doesn't it? Mickey went and grabbed some snacks and drinks. Tell me, do you prefer blood or food? I can get either, Issei then chirped in. Usually he prefers food, but with what happened and everything, I think he should have some blood. He then turns to Gasper. That usually helps you recover from stuff faster, right? He can have some of mine. Gasper blushed a bit at that. He remembered the little taste he'd had before when he was first released because Rias had forgotten to feed him even normal food for a few weeks before releasing him. This was due to the training camp, but she had forgotten about him for extended periods of time multiple times before that. Due to this, when he saw Issei still moving in his frozen time, his instincts told him to drink, and nearly took over him completely. He couldn't get the flavor out of his mind since then, and the fact that Issei hadn't pushed him away when Gasper jumped on him. Issei's parents noticed the blush and silently agreed to help both the boys out. Mickey was the one that spoke. That seems okay with Gasper. Now, would you like it from the source or in a cup? Gasper's blush grew heavier as the floor became a lot more interesting all of a sudden. I'll have it from Issei, if he's okay with it. Issei grinned happily as he pulled Gasper into his lap, having forgotten about his not-so-little friend trying to act up earlier. Drink up. Gasper could barely look as Issei, but nodded, his head going towards Issei's neck. Thanks for the meal. As Gasper's fangs sank into Issei's neck, Issei could feel himself getting hard, but tried to keep it down. Gasper then let out a soft growl that almost sounded like a purr into his neck, and Issei's sausage shot up, making his eyes widen as he felt a touch under Gasper's skirt. Please don't notice, please don't notice, please don't notice, Issei was chanting in his head. Gasper noticed, letting out a little squeak as he started returning to his usual self. He quickly pulled his fangs out of Issei's neck, licking the spot where he bit him so it could heal a bit quicker and stop bleeding. Gasper's blush was redder than Rias' hair at this point as he whispered to Issei. Go ahead and hide it, okay, Issei? Issei nodded and quickly adjusted it, both him and Gasper blushing like maidens as he did so. After that though, Gasper still didn't move from Issei's lap, just turning around to face Issei's parents. Issei's parents were barely suppressing their laughter at the scene in front of them. Once Goro had calmed down a bit, and his wife had returned with drinks and snacks, he got a bit more serious. Now Issei, I think it's about time we talked about your heritage. Issei seemed a little confused at this. What do you mean? Mickey stepped into the conversation. Well, you see, your father is a child of Ares, the god of war. As for me, I was trained by an old monkey that even the gods were incapable of killing. Issei was silent for a few seconds before it all caught up in his brain. Wait, what? Mickey giggles, finding his reaction hilarious. You heard me. May as well just rip off the band-aid, right? Goro frowned. More like you just wanted to get a reaction out of him. Mickey turned to Goro, her smile turning almost sickly sweet. What was that, dear? Goro quickly paled. And nothing, honey. Mickey returned to normal. That's what I thought. For some reason, almost as if he could sense the chaos, and didn't want to miss the opportunity to watch, Sun Wukong suddenly appeared. And by suddenly appeared, I mean he went rocketing in at Mach through their window. Ah, Mickey, good to see you again. How's your life been? Mickey smiles. It's been good. Just kicked 2 manipulative little devils from my house. Sun Wukong just grinned. Well, that sounds like it was fun. Meanwhile, Gasper got scared and quickly pulled himself closer to Issei, who noticed Gasper's fear, getting a bit angry at the sight of it. Who are you? He asked, his voice holding barely restrained anger and bloodlust. In response, Sun Wukong just laughed. My apologies, Red Dragon. I am Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, and the great monkey Buddha, he said before releasing a fraction of a percent of his own bloodlust, easily terrifying both Issei and Gasper. But Issei didn't back down, releasing more bloodlust and letting out the boosted gear. At this, Sun Wukong grinned. Gutsy little brat, eh? Well then, just as a demonstration, he says before releasing an overwhelming pressure, easily forcing Issei to his knees, and even his parents her having trouble breathing before it abated. 1%. That's how much of my power and bloodlust you were feeling. At this, Issei froze up before saying in his head, Drake, why do I feel like I'm completely screwed? I'm just gonna get into it this time. Sun Wukong saw that Issei still wasn't backing down, and grinned, finally letting up on the bloodlust. Not bad, boy. Most would abandon all hope at that point, Issei sighed in relief. Well, that was a really terrifying experience. Gasper was still shaking behind Issei at the moment, but appeared to be calming down. So scary. Issei turned back and picked him up, wanting to comfort him. It's okay, he won't hurt you. Just stay calm and trust me, okay? Sun Wukong just watched this with look of confusion. Are you sure he's your son? Neither of you are very good at calming others, so I thought I'd check. Mickey then tried to smack Sun Wukong upside the head. Needless to say, that didn't go well. Mickey was now sporting a bruised, and possibly broken, hand and is cussing like a soldier getting their leg cut off to avoid infection. Gora then remembered why they were talking about his heritage now instead of at some other point. Oh, that reminds me, we told you this since your grandpa was impressed by your fight against Riser Phoenix, noticed the resemblance to me, and has now asked if you would like training from him. Issei was kinda shocked by this. A literal god wanted to train him, so Issei had the most logical response he could have in this situation. He buried his head under Gasper's skirt and started thinking through his options, making Gasper blush and start getting hard, not going unnoticed by Issei due to it being right next to his face. His voice then came out from under Gasper's skirt. Tease him about this later. Note, this is not in reference to Gasper's hard-on. Issei is many things, but he isn't a hypocrite. After a few minutes of this, during which the old monkey was just laughing like an idiot, Gasper was too embarrassed to speak and Issei's parents were planning the wedding. Issei emerged from the Cave of Wonders with an answer. Okay, when are we leaving? Time skipped past the packing, during which Issei was teasing Gasper for his choice of panties, and the family leaving brought to you by Canon Issei's titty addiction. After getting off the plane, Issei took a deep breath. Less annoying bitch smell in the air. So good for my lungs. Gasper giggled at the joke, a little blush coming to his face, making Issei grin as Gasper asked him a question. So, who do you think we're gonna meet? Issei rubbed his chin before shrugging his shoulders. Well, we'll definitely meet my grandfather. Past that, I don't really know. Gasper pouted a bit, then blushes as his stomach rumbled. It was different, and when he was hungry for blood though, that just ended in his eyes becoming slitted and a growl erupting from his throat. No, he was just hungry, like any other human. Issei noticed the sound, looking at Gasper. You a bit hungry? Gasper blushed, but nodded, too embarrassed to speak. Issei smirked and picked up Gasper in a princess carry, making the poor boy blush even more. Well, off to get some food then. About 2 hours later, during which Issei and Gasper went and got lunch, before going to do other things, Issei was in front of a man, standing about and wearing a leather jacket that seemed to be disguised armor. The man was decently attractive, with a muscled body and chiseled face. Atop his head was a head of short, black, curly hair hidden partially under a beaten-up, old baseball cap. Hello, Issei. I've heard a bit about you from your parents. I must say, though, your show of power against that Phoenix child was quite impressive for someone so new to this, the man said, sounding a bit spiteful as he said Phoenix. Hello, Gramps. So, you offered to train me when I got here? Ares grinned at this. No beating around the bush, then. Good. How about we start with that bloodlust I heard about? Issei looked like he was in deep thought. Give me a moment. I need to think. After saying this, he proceeded to shove his head back under Gasper's skirt, making Gasper blush and Ares just shocked silent for a second before he sighed. Why do you have to inherit Uncle Hades' weird habit? I don't feel like writing more in this scene, so moving on. Also, yes, Hades does stuff like this with Persephone. On to the next scene. Once Issei and Gasper were dragged over to Mount Olympus, they were pretty astounded by the view. A beautiful, shining paradise, gilded in silver, gold and many other precious metals. The light wasn't blinding though. If anything, it was soothing, relaxing. In one word, perfect. Each palace also seemed perfectly tailored to the Olympian it was made for. After a minute or two of gawking, Issei turned to Ares. Okay, I'll see how well I can pull on my bloodlust. I'm not exactly in practice though, so it may take a minute. Ares nodded, and Issei closed his eyes, looking inwards, trying to find that part of him, the part that wanted to kill, that reveled in the pain and agony of battle. After a minute of this searching, he felt it, and began to pull it to the surface. Back with Ares and Gasper, they were waiting for only about 5 minutes before the room started getting filled with an intense bloodlust. One born from hatred and betrayal. Ares smirked, and Gasper was turned on, his mind filled with ideas of Issei pinning him against the wall, ripping off his panties, and, before Gasper could get more lost in his own mind, Ares smacked him on the back of the head. Stop thinking perverted thoughts. Save it for the bedroom. At this Gasper blushed. Before Gasper could go into another fantasy, Issei stopped releasing bloodlust and was sweating and panting. Man, calling that out is way too tiring. Ares grinned, ignoring the perverted damper to address his grandson. Not bad for a beginner. With a few months of training, you should be perfectly able to match your father's bloodlust. Issei looked a little curious for a second. I'm curious. What does % of your bloodlust feel like? At this, Ares couldn't help but laugh. You sure you want to know? Issei thought for a second, shoving his head in the back side of Gasper's skirt this time. After a minute, Issei came out of Gasper's skirt, giving his a little before looking at his grandfather. Only if Gasper isn't here. Ares snapped his fingers. There. Now, he's at a hotel in the human world. Ready? As I'll ever be. Once Issei said this, gravity became too much, forcing him into a kneeling position. The air became too thick to breathe, nearly suffocating him. It felt like his entire being was being ripped apart, and crudely put back together to repeat the process. It felt like death itself decided to make his death painful and agonizing. Every second felt like years, and the effects got exponentially worse as time went on. Half a second in, Issei began coughing up blood, and after 3 he collapsed to the floor. When this happened, Ares ceased the flow of his bloodlust. 3 seconds, huh? Not bad, a voice said from behind Ares. There, as smug as ever, Sun Wukong sat, seemingly unaffected by the earlier pressure. Yeah, he definitely has potential. It should be pretty fun to teach him. After traveling over to Apollo to get Issei healed up, they sent him to the same hotel as Gasper, which was actually on Olympus. Hello once more, everybody. I'm having fun writing this, and it gets my mind off the crushing existential dread brought on by the end of senior year. I'll probably work on something else once I'm done with this school year. Anyways, hope you enjoy. As Issei walked into Ko, he could feel the stares on him and the people following him. The things they were saying made it so much funnier too. Now you may be asking why Issei found it funny. Well, to put it simply, Issei was walking with Gasper, who was now his boyfriend, and a man named Hitoshi Sugoroku, picture above, who had more recently become his boyfriend. The best part was the comments. Issei was gonna have a field day when everyone figured out. Some comments from the other men were all along the lines of Issei being a lucky bastard, which he was, and how they want the pretty girls to ditch that bastard and ride us till sunrise. Issei was barely keeping himself from laughing at them. This should be fun. Now you may be wondering why Issei has another trap with him. Simple answer, Tartarus. Less simple answer, Hades threw him into the pit. Issei used it as training, and while trying to escape found an effeminate boy around his age. Now, due to hanging out with Apollo, Issei's first instinct was to seduce the boy. This was not an intelligent decision, seeing as the boy was the son of Tartarus, the primordial god of the very pit he was currently stuck in. After a lengthy argument, and no small amount of Issei hitting on Hitoshi, it was agreed upon that he could go with Issei, but on the condition that Issei had to try and give the boy a somewhat normal life. Moving on from Issei acting like a bard for a bit, he brought the 2 boys to the student council office. When they arrived, Issei noticed 2 things quickly. 1, that pawn, Saji, wasn't there, and second, there was an attractive, effeminate man who seemed to have perfect control over his bloodlust. Sona was the first to speak. So, what brings you by here, Hayato? Issei smirks. Well, originally, I'd come to get Hitoshi here his schedule, but now I'm curious, where's Saji? Sona gave Issei a frown, showing a bit of anger as she handed the new boy his schedule. No longer around. Issei could tell it was probably a sore spot, so he decided to move on. So I'm guessing the hottie over there is his replacement, he said, gesturing to the boy. Sona smirked, thinking she could mess with Issei a bit. Yes, he's Saji's replacement. Issei immediately moved in closer to the boy. Well then, how about I help him test his stamina? Sona could already feel a migraine coming on. Are you seriously trying to seduce one of my Peerage members, Haida? You do realize he's a boy, right? Issei grinned. I know, and yes, I am trying to do so. And based on that blush, I'm succeeding. Said boy was currently bright red from embarment. Sona sighed in slight annoyance. Well then, what about women and S? Issei chuckled. Yeah, I quit that. Went cold turkey. Sona was shocked at that, but didn't let it show. Anything else you need, or are you done? Issei thought about it for a moment, going into his favorite spot to think before emerging once again. Oh yes, one more thing. Sona couldn't even bring herself to speak at this point. At first, it was out of shock and embarrassment, then out of fear as Issei began releasing his bloodlust. Tell Rias that if she tries to get anyone I consider a friend into her peerage through any underhanded methods, that I will see to it personally that she suffers for the rest of her days. After that, he cut off his bloodlust, smiled, sent the blushing newbie a wink and left. Sona was sweating a bit. Call a meeting with Rias. We need to find out what she did. Skip to the next scene brought to you by High School Musical being put on by a bunch of high school theater kids. Issei sat down in his usual seat and received the usual glares from women. This time, though, he was smirking. After a few minutes, the teacher walked in and took attendance. Ah, you finally showed up again, Haida. What kept you out of CL? Issei looked at the teacher. We were spending time with my grandfather. The teacher shrugged, not really caring. Well, in other news, we have a new student in CL today, so please be respectful. As he said this, he sent a pointed look at the perverted trio. You can come in now. And in walks Hitoshi Sugoroku. The girls gasp, and the boys cheer. Issei just continues to smirk. Oh, this is gonna be funny. The other two perverts notice Issei's expression, and using the half a brain cell between them, started to think. Hi, I'm Hitoshi Sugoroku. I hope we get along, Hitoshi said with a smile. The teacher looked out over the students. So, any questions? Many hands went up, and the teacher picked. Kate, you first. The pink-haired girl stood up. So, where are you from? Hitoshi looked over. I'm from Greece. The next question was from Murayama. So, where are you staying? At Issei's house. Many of the boys tried to attack Issei, but were stopped when Aika spoke up. And why am I getting penis readings from you? Very impressive ones, by the way. Issei steps in. I can answer that. It's cause he's a guy. The whole CL freezes up, not knowing how to process the new information. The other perverts were the first to recover, leaning in close to their buddy. So, you finally got yourself a boyfriend? Issei smirked. 2 of them, actually, and they both know, and agreed to share me. They were stunned silent before good job, man. We're so happy for ya. Issei gets a little annoyed, but is happy that they aren't too angry. Here, just so y'all have proof. They were confused before Issei cupped Hitoshi's cheek in his hand and leaned into him. This shocked the CL as it quickly turned into an all-out makeout session, and Hitoshi was lifting Issei by his, pinning him to the wall. Before it can go any further, the teacher breaks up their little moment so he can start CL. Time skip to after CL brought to you by me writing this instead of doing quirk cause we have an altered schedule while I'm writing this, and I don't know when this CL period ends. Both the boys were being questioned heavily. Issei came out to the CL, which shocked the members of the ORC that were in the CL overall. A very productive time. Time skip to after school brought to you by the author being lazy and not wanting to write that scene out. Issei was currently sitting in the classroom when in walks the Prince of Kuo. Kiba smiled at Issei, but Issei just looked at him with a dead look, but in his mind, he came up with a devious plan. What do you want, bastard? Everyone in the classroom was shocked other than a few people specifically, those being the ones in the know because they knew what he did, and Hitoshi because he looked into Issei's mind, seeing what he was planning. Well, Rias sent me to get you and your friend here, Kiba said, still a little confused. Issei knew exactly how to do this now. Oh, so the bitch sent the cheater to get me? Everyone was stunned into silence, and Hitoshi walked up behind Issei, wrapping his arms around him from behind, deciding to play along. Ah, so he's the one you told me about? Kiba looked confused. What are you talking about? At this, Issei made himself start tearing up. How could you say that after you used me, then just broke my heart with that damned redhead? On the inside, Issei couldn't stop himself from laughing, seeing the look of confusion on Kiba's face, and the looks of anger on his classmates' faces. What? I did no such thing. Issei let himself tear up a bit more as he continued. Was I that unimportant to you? What was I, some toy, some conquest to you? After this, Issei turned around and threw himself into Hitoshi's arms. Issei was smirking as he did so. Hitoshi spoke next with a claw-dead voice. Leave and never speak to him again, got it? Well, that scene was fun. Time skipped to when Issei goes there anyways with his two lovers by his side, brought to you by this. It's brought to you by this. Hello there, Rias, Issei says as he pushes open the door. Rias looked at his in shock. What are you doing here? You just ruin our reputations, and then come here anyways? Issei thought for a second. Yes, Rias growled at his, but Issei simply laughed. Well then, on to the reason I came here. Stay away from me and anyone I care for, and I won't bother you guys at all. Do so, and you face my wrath. Well, see ya. With that, he attempted to leave, but a barrier surrounded the room. Adorable, you think this will stop me? With that lady statement, he walked through the barrier like it wasn't even there. Hello, and today we start the Excalibur arc. This is one that's a little more annoying to write for, but hopefully it goes well. On to the story. Thing they forgot, Issei has his clocks an hour ahead, meaning they were almost an hour early to school. Due to this though, they ran into 3 people in front of their school, all of whom were wearing cloaks, and exuding a holy aura, though Lone seemed to hold some corruption, from what Issei could feel. The first one, who easily had the purest aura of the bunch, had long, light brown hair done up into twin tails, purple eyes, and seemed to just exude happiness. Around her forearm was a ribbon that gave off some impressive holy aura. The second had blue hair with a streak of green in he bangs, her hair halfway styled into a bob cut while still being really messy, brown eyes that are somehow both deadpan, and constantly set in a glare. On her back was a similar artifact to the ribbon the other one held, though it held more destructive power, rather than the constantly shifting one of the ribbon. It was the last one that had Issei interested though. He had long, black hair that went a bit past his, gray eyes and a happy expression that spoke of a bit too much caffeine for someone not used to caffeine. At his hips were 2 hilts made to draw out a person's aura, fashioning it into a bladed form. A bit different than the usual exorcist light swords. He was also extremely feminine, so Issei did the only sensible thing to do in this situation. He immediately started trying to seduce him. Hey cutie, how about I help you see how quick you can use the Lord's name in vain? The boy blushed, not having expected someone to hit on him like that. No thanks. Maybe we can see how quick I'd have you doing the same later? Name's Kiri, by the way, Issei simply smirked. Issei. I'd be happy to take you up on that challenge. But first, why are you here, and who are the other 2? The blue-haired one had focused her glare fully on him, but it wasn't really that bad compared to his grandfather, and especially Hades. Seeing as he had training for this, he simply smirked at her while concentrating a bit of his bloodlust around her lungs, making it harder for her to breathe, which made her collapse to her knees in pain. Maybe don't glare at me, and use your words. You'll probably be less likely to die if you do so. After saying that, he released his hold, resulting in her panting heavily to get some oxygen back into her system. You aren't Issei, the chestnut-haired girl said as the ribbon turned into a katana. Issei wouldn't do something like that cause someone glared at him. Issei looked confused. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm me. I mean, Hermes didn't do that cloning prank again, and I developed a bit of an immunity to Dionysus' abilities. He looked at the girl for a second before noticing a few too many similarities between the girl in front of him and his childhood friend. Wait, Irina? He was crushing her within an instant. Man, it's been too long. Also, when did you become a girl? Irina blushed. Why, you idiot, I've always been a girl. Had the lady parts and everything. Before the conversation could continue, the blue-haired girl jumped at Issei, swinging her oversized blade at him with way too little control. Zenobia, wait! Irina shouted in vain as the swing went right towards Issei. Issei took a moment to decide how to go about the problem, and went with catching her blade. The destructive power went straight into his arm, actually shaking it a bit, seeing as he didn't reinforce his arm, or use his left arm to catch it. The second he felt that, his anger went through the roof, and he began gripping the blade. Crack! The exorcists looked on in shock and slight horror as Issei began to crack Excalibur destruction with one hand. He then began to release a bit more bloodlust, this time focusing in her heart, resulting in her heartbeat both speeding up, but also becoming weaker, as it can't expand as much as usual. Had I not caught that, you would have hurt the boys behind me, and more than likely destroyed the building behind me as well, which has a few dozen people in it. You're lucky you're friends with Irina, and you're lucky I'm feeling generous today. With that, he let up on his bloodlust once more, and released his hold on the blade, focusing some power into it to repair the damage he did. After cleaning down, Zenobia had a look of shock and horror, as she realized what she had almost done. She'd almost killed multiple innocent people. Issei turned to Irina. So, what brings you guys to Ko Town? I'm guessing not the scenery, seeing as you're both holding an Excalibur fragment, and the hottie over there is holding two swords that would perfectly cancel out any rogue users of holy power using his corrupted holy aura. They seemed a bit shocked, though Irina seemed relieved. She hadn't wanted to lie to Issei. Well, a mission, actually. Zenobia stood up, remembering she had a job to do. So, could you set us up a meeting with the devils of this town? Issei stroked his chin, thinking on how to go about it. I can try. Come on, they're probably already here, and inside. With that, the exorcists followed Issei into the school. Time skipped to when they get to the ORC, brought to you by Issei getting baiting lessons from Zeus before Aphrodite steps in and actually teaches him how to get a man. Once they arrived, the ORC was quickly on guard. Issei, why did you bring exorcists into my territory? Issei rolled his eyes. 'Cause they have a mission, they needed to speak with you, and 'cause I like annoying you, and making your guys suffer. Could you not tell from me tanking all of you guys' popularity with the whole cheating thing? Irina looked confused. What cheating thing? Before Rias could try and spin it in her favor, Issei spoke up. Simple, I didn't feel like talking to them at that point in time, so I decided to make them suffer a bit by saying I was dating Rias, and that she cheated on me with Blondie over there, he says, gesturing to Kiba, who looks pissed off, but not at him. Rias sighed. That's beside the point. What did you three wish to speak about? Zenobia coughed into her hand. We've come to get something that was stolen from the church. We have reason to believe the thief is headed here. Rias narrowed her eyes. Do you think we took something from the church? Zenobia looked on with a blank expression. While I wouldn't put it past devils to take something from us, no. We know who the culprit is. Rias looked at her, silently asking who it was. The culprit is Kokabeel. He broke in and stole 3 of the Excalibur fragments. We do not know his reasoning. The reason we came to speak to you was to ask you and your peerage to stay out of our way while we continue our investigation. Rias stood up in a flash of anger and power. And who do you think you are to tell me to stay out of an issue in my own territory? Zenobia wasn't really fazed, especially after Issei's show of anger. It was simply our orders, Kiri butted in. But those are orders we'd be willing to defy, if the situation is dire enough. Rias calmed down for a bit before Zenobia noticed Asia. Wait, are you Asia Argento? Asia seemed a bit scared, but nodded her head. So, the former holy maiden turned which became a devil. Tell me, do you still believe in God? Before Irina can say her canon line, Issei steps in. She does. Don't know if she still follows his teaching, but still. Asia looked down, and Zenobia put her hand on her sword. If you truly still believe, then you will allow me to strike you down, and purify your souls so that you may return to our Lord's good graces. Issei now stepped in between the two. Zenobia, why do you so quickly jump to the violent solution? It's not the only way to shove a problem, but it's usually the quickest, but not always the best one. Before the small argument can continue, Kiba steps up, summoning a sword. Well, since you seem to think you're better than us, how about a little spar? Zenobia looked at Kiba. And who are you? Kiba's glare gets firmer. Your superior, though I was a failed one. Issei turned to Irina and Kiri. So, if those two are fighting, would you two like to have a little match? The two shrug. Minor time skip to them getting outside, brought to you by one of the dumbest ideas I came up with. County roads sung by a gospel choir, with one of them singing over the rest in Cajun French, and the background instrumental being Duel of the Fates, while a nun with bright pink aviators has a lightsaber battle with a big, muscular man wearing nothing but a Speedo in an attempt to seduce him. The nun wields a blue lightsaber that is shaped like a mild dildo, and the man wields a pink lightsaber. Tired Me was not feeling too sane when they wrote this, as Kiba basically just gets his handed to him by Zenobia. Issei is currently fighting both Irina and Kiri. He's holding back quite a lot, but he's still having fun though. He also refuses to do things normally, as he keeps spanking Kiri throughout the battle. The part that pisses off the two is that they haven't landed a single blow on him. Dang, this has been fun, but it looks like your friend is done. How about inviting her over to this match? Zenobia did end up joining, but it didn't really help too much. Issei then jumped back and quickly reinforced the barrier around the fight. Okay, I have an idea. All three of you charge up your most powerful attacks, and I won't move from this spot. Sound fair? They all end up agreeing, charging as much power as they can wield into their blades. Once they were all ready, Kiri started off by doing a twin slash at him, meant to weaken any resistance he had to holy power. Next, Irina charged at him, starting the slash with the lightest possible blade, but shifting it at the last second to both release all the built-up power and make it larger and heavier. Finally, Zenobia jumped forward, throwing a slash that held an immense amount of her power in it. The attack hit him right in the shoulder. Boom! A mild explosion of dust happened as she hit Issei. When the dust cleared, there Issei stood with 0 wounds. He simply dusted off his shoulders and looked at his opponents. My turn. With that, he disappeared. The three looked around, trying to find him when Zenobia suddenly collapsed to the ground. Irina, seeing this, moved towards her quickly. This was a mistake, and she also collapsed. Finally, Issei appeared in front of Kiri. So, about that lunch? Kiri tried to swing his blade at Issei, who simply dodged. Maybe after school today? Another strike, and he tried to answer. Sounds fun, Issei grinned. Awesome. Nighty-night. And Kiri collapsed to the ground. Issei stretched his back before picking up all three of them. Well, see ya. Hopefully, you lot suffer. With that he went home to get them to his house. Skip to his house brought to you by Issei grabbing both his boyfriends from their kurum, and making out with Gasper in front of the younger boys while CL. At Issei's house, his parents were in the living room, currently making out rather intensely. Issei sets down the people he was carrying, with the exorcists having woken up by that point. Irina smiles, though it's clearly a bit forced, clearly extremely uncomfortable due to the rather intense make-out session in front of her. Hey, Issei's parents. Been a while, hasn't it? Issei's parents broke away from the barely phase by getting caught. Oh, Irina, it's been too long. What brings you to town? His father then notices Kiri. Did you end up seducing a member of the church, Issei? Issei gave an unrepentant grin in response. Possibly, Goro smirked back. Good job, son, Kiri blushed, and Irina got a bit curious. Hey, Issei. Issei turned to her. Yes? You do realize Kiri's a guy, right? Yeah, and so are my other two boyfriends. What of it? Irina's eyes widened a bit, but she seemed relieved, then looked to see if Zenobia was listening to them. She wasn't, so Irina spoke in a slightly hushed voice. Help me get Zenobia to notice me, be it romantically or Yuli, and I'll help you get with Kiri, and I'll be your wing woman where I can, deal? Issei hadn't expected that, but held out his hand. I don't necessarily need the help, but I'd be happy to be of service. Irina shook his hand, and the two started catching up on things. Because of this, though, Irina got ever so slightly angry and was about to go stab a bitch before remembering what Issei did to their images at school. Issei smirked. So, Zenobia? What had you wanting to get in her pants? Irina blushed heavily. Well, you don't have to be so blunt about it, but I'd say it was originally her devotion to her craft. She works hard to be able to wield her sword properly, and even if this stumbles at times, she still gets right back up and keeps trying. That was probably when I first started noticing her romantically. Issei was touched by Irina's reason, clutching his chest. Oh, my cold, dead heart. It's too much. Irina giggled and slapped him on the back. Issei went back to grinning. And what about when you noticed her Yuli? Irina grew an atomic blush at that question. See, can you blame me? Just look at her. The abs, the thighs, her ass, that gorgeous of hers. Irina, you're drooling. This is being split in 2 parts so I can go in depth with the big fight of this arc. I want to show off some of Issei's training. Anyways, let's get to it. Is this really necessary? Issei asked as the 3 church members were trying to find the local church. In devil territory. Just go with it. Irina turned back to the boy, pouting. Yes, it is. We would rather not live off your family's charity. Issei gave her a deadpan look. You just don't want to deal with the copious amounts of head by either my parents, or I and my boyfriends. Irina blushed. Can you blame me? We are warriors of God, and all of you are very loud about your activities, Hitoshi piped up, having tagged along out of boredom. Are you sure it isn't because you can't let out your lust with that other girl? Irina blushed even more. He hit the nail right on the head. Seriously, just go for it, IRI. I've been watching you two for a few days, and Zenobia definitely notices you Yuli, and based on the few conversations I've had with her, she seems to at least hold a sense of admiration for you, Issei said, trying to get his friend to feel better. Irina pouted, and Issei patted her on the back as she spoke. I can't just ask her out. What if she rejects me? Then our friendship will be awkward, and she'll never want to see me again. Issei rolled his eyes. How about this? I asked Zenobia if she has feelings for you, and if she does, I'll help you confess after your mission. Irina seemed okay with the idea. This should be interesting. After a few minutes of walking, they ran into Kaneko, who was dragging the cute new student council member with her. Issei promptly jogged over. Hey there, cutie. Kaneko looked at Issei with a dead look. Pervert. Issei, in response, looked at her with his best resting bitch face. And I wasn't talking to you, bitch. He then turned to the blue-haired boy, who was blushing up a storm, and gently grabbed his chin, putting on his best seductive smirk. So, anything I could do to get a date with you? The boy was stammering over his own words. How about an introduction at first? Issei leaned in a little closer. Okay, my name's Issei Hayato, and I'd be happy to show you a good time. The blue-haired boy was blushing up a storm at this point, but managed to respond. I'm Nagisa Shiota. Before Issei could formulate a response, he was smacked over the head by Irina, who looked both jealous and indignant. Seriously, do you have no shame? Irina yelled, annoyed at his actions. Issei looked at her, deadpan. No, I don't have any shame. After calming down, all of them went to a burger place. After a meal, they made a plan. Okay, so we're going to figure out where everybody is. I'll start by looking in one of my favorite thinking spots. Before either one could ask what Issei meant, he went under Hitoshi's skirt, which didn't even elicit much of a response from the boy, who just reached down and started patting Issei's head. Irina just about lost it. After calming down again, they actually started looking. Issei seemed to actually get serious for a moment though, putting everyone else on guard. Just then, Issei caught a blade which had been aiming at his neck. Almost none of the others could see the attack due to its speed. Seems he's using Excalibur rapidly. This is gonna be irritating, Issei sighed as he summoned the boosted gear. The ex-priest in front of them laughed maniacally. Oh, you wanna fight, huh, little devil lover? Boost. Yes, but I wouldn't call what's about to happen a fight, Issei said darkly. He then began to release his bloodlust. It's gonna be a maker. The two opponents were completely still for a moment before they rushed at each other. The repeated sound of steel on steel resounded through the street before many of the two fighters' allies could understand what was happening. After almost seconds of continuous sound rang through the street, either opponent being seen in their movements throughout the short exchange before they both stopped around paces from one another. Neither even seemed winded. Not bad for a paid offender, Issei said with a smirk. I could say the same, damned deviler. And who said I had to be paid for that? Fried shouted, voice filled with pure madness and delirium. Issei couldn't roll his eyes any harder. Go figure. Hitoshi, said Boy looked over. Oh yes, I'll take over, if you want a break, Issei sighed. No, just look for the opening I'll give you and him up. They then returned to their fight, Hitoshi now looking for a good enough opening. The fighting continued for another 2 minutes before. Got it, Hitoshi said, smiling as he seemed to teleport behind Fried, fists becoming covered in fire, magma, divine energy, and the souls of the damned as it plunged into the deranged madman's back, tearing the spinal column in half. Fried could no longer feel his legs. Well, that was easy, Issei sighed, picking up Excalibur rapidly. You seem to forget that most would consider him a tough opponent if they could even defeat him. Hitoshi raised an eyebrow. He can't even heal from a little bit like that. How is that a challenge? Issei sighed before leaning in close and whispering in the smaller boy's ear. After a moment, Hitoshi's smile grew as he grabbed Fried. We are absolutely going to the second we get back home. Issei shuddered a bit. Oh yeah, we ain't sleeping at all, are we? Hitoshi pulled him down by his collar before making out with him. After pulling away, he responded. Definitely. With that, both Hitoshi and Fried disappeared in a burst of fire, leaving a blushing and lightly panting Issei, a jealous and flustered Nagisa, and an annoyed Irina. Oh, come on! Why can't I be that lucky? Irina shouted. Issei just looked over at her confused before remembering her ordeal. You do know Zenobia told me how she wants to, and I quote, see you squirming beneath her, begging for more, right? Issei asked, not having his usual filter in place while his brain continued to reboot. Irina was shock silent before grabbing Excalibur rapidly from Issei's grip. I need this for just a moment. Bye. She then ran in the direction of Issei's house while using the powers of Excalibur rapidly to increase her speed tremendously. Issei just laughed when he realized what happened. I don't know if I should laugh or feel bad for Zenobia. After a few more minutes of waiting about, during which Issei and Nagisa started getting to know each other, even agreeing on when they would go on a little outing to get to know each other more, Hitoshi showed up, covered in blood. He then grabbed Issei and just teleported to the bedroom, leaving Gasper, who had been doing homework, terrified. Only for a moment though, as Hitoshi made all of their clothing disappear in a burst of flames. Time skip to the next morning, brought to you by the author putting off doing summer school stuff at the time of writing this exact section. Also, do y'all want me to write that lemon scene? You guys can choose if you want it to be Irina x Zenobia Lemon, or Issei x Hitoshi x Gasper. It can even be both. The next morning, both Issei and Irina walked out of their respective rooms looking quite satisfied with life. The one thing about that was that Irina only fell asleep around 4 hours before that, and Issei didn't even sleep. Also, either one was wearing anything more than either their underwear or a bathrobe. Hey, Irina, have a good night? Issei asked, his words being a little slurred. Yeah, real nice, thanks for the info, by the way, Irina responded, still in a state of bliss. After they had both come down from their respective highs, they began working on breakfast. After breakfast, during which Zenobia and Irina couldn't even look at each other without blushing. Issei and Hitoshi didn't have this problem at all, both having absolutely no shame. Anyways, after breakfast, everyone agreed they needed to go look for the remaining members of Kokobil's team. They knew the current location of the base, so they were sure they could do some damage. As they were about to leave, Zenobia's overprotective girlfriend instincts kicked in, and she pulled Irina closer to her, making the poor girl blush. Me and Irina will go and speak with the devils, if you don't mind, Zenobia said in an even tone. Issei sighed. Zenobia, it'll be fine. I'm sure Irina can defend herself if worse comes to worse. Yes, but we are dealing with a cadre CL fallen. I don't want her to be in danger if I can help it. Well, why not bring Issei started to speak again, but then looked around. Does anyone know where Kiri is? I don't think he was at breakfast either. Everyone was confused before noticing the smaller boy wasn't there at the moment. They started searching the house as quickly as they could, worried for the boy. It was Issei who found him, but he couldn't bring himself to get closer. Kiri was currently going through what appeared to be a severe flashback, both blades of light and darkness out and at the ready. Issei, not knowing how to get in much closer without risk to both himself and Kiri, left the room. Once Issei was downstairs with everyone else, he turned to Zenobia. Do you know anything about Kiri's past that might have been traumatic for him? Zenobia thought for a second before coming to a realization. The Holy Sword Project. Issei knew what that was, so it didn't need to be explained to him. He racked his brain to try and find a solution, or think of a way to get him out of that flashback. That's when he got an idea. Give me a moment, I have an idea. One of you keep watch over him to make sure nothing bad happens while I'm gone. With that, he left to try and find possibly the only person that could snap the boy out of his current state. He had to find Kiba. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Die Wilfentime for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.